Hi, folks, in the Cobb TV studios with Chairman Mike Boyce for his weekly chat with us, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ross. Good to be back.
You seem rested and ready after a little bit of a trip away.
Well, I was spent the last week with my grandboys who decided that this is the summer they want to spend most of their time inverted at amusement parks on rides. So my neural networks are still rearranging themselves. At my age, I shouldn't be doing that, but they challenged my manhood, and I had to step up to the plate.
Yeah, they have those things where you have to be so tall to ride those rides. I think they should put an age limit.
Well, I was trying to stoop down under that line, but even that didn't work.
Well, I mean, tis the season. We're moving into fall now, and some people are getting some notices in the mail that are causing some concern.
Well, of course, yeah, and as we said during the town halls, that we had to officially advertise that the proposed millage rate, based on the formula that the state gives us, was going to be in the neighborhood of 35%. And as you saw during my video, I said once you bring in the homestead exemption that many of you qualify for, your increase will be somewhere between, be somewhere over 20%. And I get all that part, but I also try to emphasize it. Let's just take a look at it at a way that perhaps will keep your blood pressure down. Take that increase and divide it by 12. And my guess is that once you do that, that number will probably be somewhere under 20. And my question to you is $20 extra a month worth it to you to have extra policemen riding in cars with body cameras and equipment that protects you? Just look at that as, is that just that one number, just that one issue alone? Is that amount of money worth it to you to have the protection that you need from our public safety here in this county? And I think the answer to most people they'd probably say, yeah, it's worth it.
And I know Carla Jackson had just sent something out that these are we're going out in the mail.
Sure.
And a lot of people also realize we're kind of beating a dead topic that the school district gets a big chunk for many of us of the tax bill. And secondly, as our tax commissioner said several times, it's good to own real estate in Cobb. It's gone up. My house has gone in the last 2 years from around $320,000 to nearly $400,000 in assessment.
It has, but I also, again, going back to the practical side of life, it's money out of your wallet, and that's what I focus on. But I believe that this was a time that we really had to do something about, nothing else on the budget, was to start addressing these real shortfalls we've known about for a while in public safety. And again, I'm happy to see that we had so much support from the public, but again, I'm very sensitive to the fact that it was money out of their wallet. And we're going to deliver on our promises to make sure that we use that money in the manner that we said we're going to, and you'll be able to see the benefit of those services here by Christmas time. Yeah,
that's my next question I was going to ask you. We've gotten calls, when will the libraries be open on Sunday?
Sure.
I've seen we've advertised for some more DOT workers to fill these crews, so it's coming.
It's coming, but it won't happen overnight. Again, we have to do contracts. We live in a society of laws, and we have to comply with those laws like everybody else does to make sure we cross the T's and dot the I's. But by Christmas time, you will see every district will see something that benefits them and their lives.
We've passed the budget and millage, and there was a lot of activity heading up to that, and then you kind of thought there'd be a lull at the end of the summer. But in reality, I'm getting a lot of emails. I'm sure your calendar is filling up too, with a couple of items, one of which is transit.
Yeah, transit. And I think this is a good time that what I go back to remind everybody is that, when you have a vacuum, something's going to fill that vacuum, all right? And that's the case in the society that we live in. Particularly, we have so many streams of information. Some of them are factual, some of them are opinionated, some are just, in fact, not true at all. And right now, now that we've gotten behind the budget and the millage rate, the transit's the next big thing. And what I want to reassure everybody is we are nowhere near anywhere arriving at the way forward on the transit legislation passed by the state last spring. I believe you're going to show here a chart here of the process we're going through right now. We are just now in the formative stages of creating those boards that are going to be necessary to make decisions based on what counties want to do. And remember, the counties are part of districts, transit districts, and the transit districts don't match the county lines either. So we have transit districts that overlap as many as 3 different counties. So what I just want to reassure everybody is that we start, the mayoral caucuses are starting right now. I will convene a district caucus early in the fall. And then by January, this ATL board will be formulated with all the necessary representatives, at which time it can start to do its job. And there are a lot of options out there, but right now, until we complete two things, until we do the transit survey in September, where we're going to broadly go out to the county and ask them their ideas about transit, what kind of transit they're interested in and what they'll be willing to support. That's the real issue here. It's one thing to want something, it's something else to want to pay for it, okay? And then, of course, the transit study, which has been going on now for over a year, those results will come out in November. So what I would caution everybody is until we get the results of those two products, anything you hear with regard to transit is merely discussion. And I know that at the end of this month, the business community is already starting to shape panels to start talking about this issue. But I want to be very, very cautious here is that let's not get the cart before the horse. Whatever we talk about now should be very generic in nature because we don't have the results of the survey or the study. So because we don't have the products of those two efforts, how do we know what facts are that we can discuss? And I know I'll be spending a lot of time here probably responding to all kinds of opinions you're going to hear out there, but my answer is going to be consistent through at least November. Until I hear the results of both the survey and the study, I'm not going to be commenting on any specifics regarding transit because anything I would be saying would create controversy because it would be an opinion, not based on fact.
And I've had a lot of people ask me about the survey, what kind of questions will be asked,
Right.
who will be answering them, and that sort of thing.
Right. Well, first of all, remember the survey is funded by your tax dollars. So any concern you might have that this survey will be created or funded by a faction that would look for a desired outcome, it's simply not true. This is a county product, and we don't have a desired outcome other than the fact that we produce some information that we can use for discussion. And the second part is that the survey itself is being looked at, reviewed by an informal group of people that are drawn from the elected official side, from the business side, from the private community side, and they'll be reviewing the survey to ensure that it has the impartiality that is a concern to many people and certainly one of my major concerns. You
mentioned just the other day that you'll be very interested to see the answers, kind of leading me to believe that you really have no idea what the
I have no idea. The last concerted effort we have with regard to transit in this county was the 2000 T-Splost, and that's 6 years ago. And this county, you know, a lot of things changed in 6 years in this county. Again, I keep going back to what I've said. I don't need to have a traffic study to know I have a traffic problem. Now, transit is one of the options to address the transportation issue, but it is not the paramount solution to that. Transportation issues, for instance, roads, infrastructure, products that move traffic along. There are a lot of options to address some of our traffic problems in Cobb County. But I think we got to be very careful. We make a distinction between transit and transportation. Transit is one of the alternatives to solving traffic problems. But to the nature of what those solutions might be, we won't really know until the survey is done and the study is done. And 6 years to me is a long time in my world. So right now, any discussion about transit, I think the information is pretty dated and doesn't reflect the kind of county that we live in right now.
Some people have expressed some panicky comments toward me that Gwinnett County just voted to put it on the ballot, we should be right behind them. But in reality, we're considering different things than they are.
Yeah, correct? But I get that. But I just want to remind people, for the budget and the millage rate, we started talking about this as a board last October, okay? And we finally passed the budget and the millage rate at the end of July. So that was almost, 9 months that we had to go through to develop a product first that we could take on the road and then to take it on the road. Well, here it is already the end of August. The earliest we're going to be able to have any kind of facts collectively that we can use to start forming decisions won't come until after Thanksgiving probably. So I'm already into my deadline all right, to achieve the same kind of deadlines I'm going to have to meet for getting it on a referendum on the ballot in November, which is sometime late July, early August, which is when I have to have something to the Board of Elections and officials. My primary concern from day one has always been that this time schedule is very, very tight because in this county, as we saw with the budget and the millage rate, because I firmly believe that the reason that passed is that we involved the community in our discussion and did so for a prolonged period of time, sought their opinion, and then allowed a sufficient period of time where they could collect their thoughts, formulate them, then send them on to the board that would choose how they were going to vote. That this transit issue is no different. It's just as important. So I don't see the timeline being any less to get the same end result. And it doesn't do us any good to put something on the ballot that's going to fail. That means we didn't listen to the people, and we were just taking a shot in the dark to hope that it would pass, and that's not how you should run your government. So I'm not going to make any commitments about a referendum in November of 2019. What I am going to make a commitment to, though, is that we will put nothing in front of the voters until they have had a time to properly be involved in the discussion about this issue, where they too can now get involved in getting us their input so we can make an informed decision about what we want to do with regard to this issue.
One comment you made the other day too that I found interesting, that even though our board will be a key player in this going on, you didn't want them to use transportation vernacular, the engineer of the train or driving the train.
Exactly right, yeah. Look, the legislation requires that the board submit any actions for referendum, okay? Well, what that really translates into in my world now that I've been here for a while is that anything we suggest involving a referendum is going to be read as a tax raise, okay? I don't care, how you deal the cards on this one. It's going to come out that we're just trying to raise your taxes. And I think that that's something that, given that we just raised your millage rate, all right, that people are sensitive to that and I've said this all along too, how much can the taxpayer bear? I mean, it's not that they're not willing to work with you, but they have day-to-day commitments too that they have to meet in their families and their obligations. So no matter how urgent the requirement is, if you can't afford it, you're not going to buy it. And I'm not interested in putting something together in front of the people where they're going to say, look, board, we like what you're doing here, but we can't support you on that because it's another tax too soon after the one we just gave us. So that's going to drive the discussion from the board side. And I'm not going to put the board in the position, board members in the position of saying, well, here we go again. They're just another, supporters of another tax. It's unfair to them. This legislation was driven by the state, and I expect the state legislatures who passed this bill to be actively involved in the development of any proposals that we submit, that they may submit to the board. And they're going to have to work to their respective board members to get any kind of agenda items there that might be taken to referendum. So if they think they're going to just take this whole thing and drop it in the board's lap, and if people think that, they're going to be very disappointed, because the board may be the executor of this process, but we're not going to be the ones, I don't believe, providing most of the suggestions for that. That's going to have to come, I believe, from outside parties like the business community, and they're going to work through the commissioners too, or from the state legislators. I do not want to pin this on the board like, well, there's the board, and once again, out of control about spending your money.
But the difference is the board obviously votes in the budget and millage rate, but when it comes to transit, you're going to have town halls, surveys, and then eventually a referendum, so it's going to be really the citizens.
It is, but we have to get in front of the story. I remember last spring, Commissioner Weatherford simply wanted to take something to the voters in the form of a referendum, all right, to support our police force. And the headline read, board's going to raise your taxes. Well, nothing can be farther from the truth, because we couldn't possibly raise your taxes until we submitted the issue for referendum for you to tell us yes or no. But nonetheless, once you get that headline, then it generates a narrative of its own, and it sort of dilutes the effectiveness of what you're trying to do. So we got to be very, very careful here about what we're saying and what we're doing. Now, on this one right here, I just want to go back to the initial point I made in the discussion here. There's been nothing decided about any issue regarding transit other than what has been mandated by the law, which is that we had to start putting together meetings to start nominating people to fill these boards that have been established by the legislation. That's all that's being done right now. There is no proposal for anything of any mode, regardless of what that might be, regarding transit right now.
And I saw in the legislation, because Cobb County's in, I think, 3 of the districts, but a majority in 2 of them, you get to call 2 of the district meetings. So that will be interesting going forward.
But I'll be interested to see what the survey produces, because it's been a long time, and we'll see what happens. But I think the most important thing to remember right now for many people is that the SEC football starts in 2 weeks. It's that time of the year, you know, when families can come together and be houses divided. So again, it's a look. I'm happy to be back off vacation in some ways, but the bottom line is we live in a great county, in a great country, and we are really living a great life right now. And I'm committed that I really appreciate the support from the community for this millage and this budget, and I'm committed to continuing to enhance your life to make sure this is a place where we can safely work, live, play, and pursue our dreams.
All right. Thanks, Chairman. Be sure to subscribe to his newsletter, our other newsletters, our social media channels to stay on top of all these topics as they develop, and we'll see you next week.
I'll be back.